I'd like to call this meeting Committee of the Whole to order. First item we have going here is the agenda. We have a mover to adopt the agenda as presented. Thompson. Discussion.
Good question. I just noticed this now. Are we adopting minutes of this?
Good morning to you, Rob.
Thumbs up. Format. Yeah.
Oh,
Just the
okay.
minutes of the actual Committee of the Whole.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Moving on to minute sections, we have a mover to adopt the January 15th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes as presented. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Before I continue, I'd just like to let everybody know that Councillor Ross and Councillor Krog texted me they'll be a few minutes late this morning. Okay, moving on to our registered petitions and delegations. Item 4A. Before we proceed, may I remind everybody, because we have a tight agenda this morning, that you're limited to 10 minutes on your delegation time. First one is a request to submit BikeBC Grant and investigate plowing across Nursery Trestle, Grand Forks Community Trails Society. Recommendation is Committee of the Whole receive the delegation and presentation from the Grand Forks Community Trails Society for information and the proposed motions for discussion. Mover, please. Councillor.
Trip.
Excuse me, sorry. My apologies. Good morning. Welcome.
Yes, good morning, Mayor. Good morning, councillors. Thanks for giving me the opportunity here to speak. And on behalf of the Trail Society to thank the city for its participation in our trails development over these last many years. For this, of course, the picture, of course, in front of you is the Black Train Bridge Trail, which is something that the city developed both with provincial and with federal monies. They each put a third in. And a couple of the councillors current councillors were there to help with this process. It was a long process. Anyhow, so this morning, I'm hoping to. I'm going to do it.
Is it turned on?
I just want to go hit a button. Is that it?
It's not turned on.
Oh, that'll do it.
There you go. Now it's on.
Thank you. And,
It should work now. Yeah, there you go.
okay. I last presented to council December 2017. And first thing I would like to do is give you a year in review. One of the most significant things for Grand Forks Trails was the provincial government and local regional districts commitment to trails. This is the new pavement just days after it was installed this past June, and May and June. And that pavement now goes all the way out to Whitehall Road. Now this is regional district money and of course provincial money. It was unsuccessful. The application for local one provincial grant was unsuccessful, but the provincial government went ahead and spent the money with the regional district support. So there's an ongoing regional support. So there's the new pavement. After that, there was an installation of new crush on the remaining 15 kilometers. There was the Great Trail Celebration on August 26th, that some of you went to. Thanks, Mayor. To celebrate the completion or of the new trail. I have to tell you that for many years we have been denied funds from the Trans-Canada Trail because they have focused mostly on filling the gaps in the trail. Well, that which was sort of an impossible task, and I've always told them that what gaps they really needed to fill were the ones about ability. And the bottom line is to get as many people on the trail every day as you can, not elite athletes who are traveling hundreds of miles. The society also put installation of trailhead signage to complement the walkabout guide that came out in 2016. There's 18 trails that are featured in that. And we added another trail to our stewardship agreement. The society becomes sort of a for want of a better word, I'll say repository for trail development contracts with the provincial government. And the Goat Mountain Trail was built by Ed Matthews, one of our local trail builders. It takes you from the basically North Fork Road to the summit of Goat Mountain, where there's a log and you can suck it in. The Society has also participated in the Trails Master Plan and other provincial forums that are going on. Mostly it's about the motorized, non-motorized issue that's held up everything for 10 years. Anyhow, the city and its trails. This is the work this past year that the city did on the Black Train Bridge. So the city has basically, in the past, formed partnerships with local and senior governments to build its trails, this trail of course. And the acquisition of the Black Train Bridge allowed the city, of course, to hang infrastructure on it. So it's proved pretty handy that way. And the city has always proved its commitment to active transportation, with its maintenance and promotion of its trails. My understanding from staff is that this year you're going to be focusing more on transit and transportation within the city. That's a good thing, because that helps build the city. So trails have also proven to be corridors for infrastructure. Here's the city's water line. The Kettle River Heritage Trail carries both a natural gas pipeline and a fiber optics line. And trails have proved immensely popular recreational community opportunities for all ages, for both local residents and visitors. In 2014, the Trail Society made a presentation to the council of the day about 18 proposals, places where the city, if it had an opportunity, and the regional government could improve trails. Of those 18, I think 4 have been achieved, including the upgrade to Cascade, the major one. And what I'm going to focus on today is trail number 10, under observation trail. That's what's called on the map. Today I'm going to call it the Coal Chute Connector. And the other area I was going to ask draw council's attention to is 15. And that is the west entrance of the Trans-Canada Trail into City Park. We deal with one of those two one at a time. I was going to ask the city to apply for the BikeBC Grant. I was asked to come and speak in favor of that. But I found out this morning that the city is not going to apply for the BikeBC Grant after all. Anyhow, I'm going to come and tell you why it would have been a good idea. First off, the BikeBC Grant is one of those few grants where a local government can apply for it. A private society can't apply for it. It has to be a local government, okay? And you have to have a cycling infrastructure plan in your OCP, which you do somewhere, I thought. The project must be completable within a year. These were both easy projects. Excuse me. And the projects must promote commute cycling and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Okay. And it must improve and create a safe cycling environment. And the nice thing about this one is that small communities with less than 15,000 people are eligible for 75% of the costs, because the city would have to come up with 25%. It's not a bad deal. $1 gets you 3. Anyhow, here's a picture of the Coal Chute Connector. This is the heritage rail bed that goes between two areas that are special conservation areas. I think that's what they're called. And the city has built birdhouses on the south side of this trail, and bat houses. And it is, what you're looking at there is a trail of crushed surface of coal. How am I doing for time here? And okay, thank you. It's the old heritage rail bed, and it goes right to the downtown core. It goes through a protected area, and it's really popular now. That's the nice thing about a lot of these trails. It does need resurfacing. Okay, it needs grading and resurface and packing to really encourage a regular cycling community. I took this off of Google. I could have brought you a more recent picture. This is your kind of an infamous corner in town. I know you all know about it. Off to the right, steeply downhill, is a narrow path, which is the Trans-Canada Trail entrance to City Park. And the hope is to widen it, if not reduce the grade. Okay? So, here is what, the last minute. Here's what I got to thank the city. If I only got one more minute, thank the city. You did a great job this year in plowing. This is one place where you didn't plow. I don't know if there's a technical reason you didn't. But this is the new paved trail up to the Nursery Trestle, and it wasn't plowed. I was going to ask you to submit a BikeBC Grant. I hope you do. I asked you to do it last year. I'm asking you again this year. I hope you eventually do it. But I would like you to also think about extending your city's plowing services into the regional district, and that's going to take some thinking. Okay, you're going to have to consult with Rolly Russell, and he's written you a letter in support of that, starting at least those discussions. Okay, and once again, a big thank you to the city for your trail work, and the Trail Society looks forward to working with you in the future. I got through the agenda. How did I do?
Seconds to spare.
Are there any questions?
Councilor Tripp.
Thanks for that presentation. And as a walker on those trails, I really appreciate that they're there and what they bring to the community for people. But I just was wondering, when you started off your presentation, you said that you heard that the city was not going to be putting in this funding, and I'm just wondering where you heard that and why that maybe is not up for negotiation right now.
Well, first off, I think you missed the deadline.
Oh.
The BikeBC Grant, I think, the deadline was on February 9th. And originally when I was asked to come and give this presentation, we were thinking the committee, the whole meeting was going to be the first week, first Monday, and which would have made council would have been able to give assent. They could have applied. Bingo. So that's my simple answer to that.
That's a good
Councilor
answer. Thank you.
That's about it.
Thanks for your presentation, Chris, and all the work that you do. I see in our new small projects in our capital plan this year, we do have a bike improvements section that we're doing, and it is 75% funded by grants. So I'm just wondering if, through the mayor's staff, what exactly that project entails and where the funding was coming from for that.
It was one of the projects that we were looking at, and we put it in the capital plan as a potential. But we are pretty tight this year, as you are well aware of the projects, and we weren't sure if we had the capacity for this project. And also because transportation is one of our next themes in our SCP, and looking at overall active transportation, we'd really like to look at an overall plan for the whole city and make sure that we're prioritizing the projects.
Just to follow up.
Go ahead.
Through you to our manager, Mr. Mawson had mentioned in our OCP that we have a trails or a bike plan already, but he wasn't sure if that was in the OCP. Is that what you're talking about that we're going to be doing, or is it already in there?
Sure, through the mayor. Yeah, so with the official community plan, we already has a bicycle network concept in there. It doesn't have all of the trails in there that are in the vision document.
No.
And so one of the themes of the OCP is, in the update, is active transportation and sustainable transportation. And so it's anticipated that there'd be some really good community engagement to get the trail network right. I think there was a lot of back and forth that happened several years ago in that, in this sustainable community plan, and there's a good chance to renew some of those conversations.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Great presentation, as always. All right, all those in favor to receive? Anyone opposed? So carries. Okay, 4B, 2017 and summary as per fee for service agreement in regards to the Boundary Museum Society. Recommendation is committed to all received for information. Delegation presents presentation from the Boundary Museum Society. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, thank you. Good morning, Your Honorable Mayor Conrad and our delegation, our councillors. I don't know if I'm doing that properly, but I'm trying. I did have a PowerPoint, so this is like my first time, so just bear with me. I'm going to see if I get this to work. Okay, so we're doing a year in review as well, and I've done it sort of month by month. And I can't read what I wrote down here. It's too I'll just talk about it. So January is our month where, and I'm learning because I've had to do this in January, where we apply for our summer students and Young Canada Works students. And I'm starting to read that. Here. Oh, hey. So, yeah. All right. So we've started working on our 40 by 60 extension building that's going on to the 40 by 40 livery stable that's already there on our grounds. And they started last January, so we are still working on that, trying to get grants. Last January they had Red Hat Society ladies and the Granby River Rubies as our guests. And we held a tea in honor of them. So did I miss something? Okay. So I missed February though, I think. Okay, well we did stuff in February. I'm sorry, I don't have anything up there. The museum has many different clubs that do come, and they come once a month and they use our meeting room. Then that would be the Elks, they come, the Granby Wilderness Society, Boundary Historical Society. Please let me know if I'm not talking loud enough.
You have to turn that off when you're done. So.
Okay. All right. So, and then we had the 4-H multi-cop. They come up, and WordPress with Les Johnson. He came up. We're working on getting to come back up because it was very popular with our museum. And we applied for a grant from the Phoenix Foundation, and we were awarded $1,000 from them. And out of it, I think it cost about $700, so we had other people providing funds for that. What we got out of the deal was this motorized screen and the projector, and now it's put the museum's meeting room much more user-friendly to people who want to book in our room. I'm looking at you. So we also got some money from the USCC ladies, I do believe, and a new stove and fridge were put into the kitchen, and that's made it a lot better. The stove that we had before was very dysfunctional. I'm just doing a really quick recap of the year because I have 10 minutes. In May, that seemed to be the time where we had a lot of events happening. That's when it starts. The weather's nice. Trying to read what I wrote.
Did you do signage?
We did update the signage, and the Boundary Museum replaced a lot of the updated signs. As well, you can see the picture up top there. That was a 70th celebration with the USC Youth Festival, and it was big. We had a lot of people up there. I wasn't there that day, but I know it was pretty fantastic, right? What everybody said. I'm going really fast, aren't I? In June was the month of picnics. And if you've ever been up to the museum and you've been in that shade house that is up at the museum, you know how wonderful it is. It's pretty fantastic. We also had a silver kettle picnic up at the museum, and that's when the 3 summer students that we had last year were up there. So you can see pictures of Kalena, Anton, and Ben, and our summer grants that were written in January. The snowbirds. There was a snowbird reception held there at the museum in July, and tours started with the flour mill, and they go until the end of August. And as well, what I usually am involved in is the bread making program, and it's one of my favorite things that happen up at the museum. And if anybody's been up there, you know how fantastic it is. We have Irene Parapolking usually, or Doreen Sorensen, who comes up and they have made bread, and they bring the bread up there and they bake it. Larry Janev usually starts the oven at about 7 o'clock in the morning and fires that thing up, and then next thing you know, we've got homemade bread going into the oven. We have school groups that come up. This is not on the screen, but we have the Pearlie and Hatton come up, and the teachers bring their classrooms up. They experience the homemade bread. They as well come up and wash clothes the old-fashioned way with a scrub board. And it's very successful, oddly enough. The kids really enjoy and go and say, I'm going to have my mom do this. And tell them that. But it is, it's wonderful to see the kids see things from a different way, back how our parents would have done things. In August, we had a wedding, and this is, I love showing these pictures whenever anybody's coming up talking about a wedding. It just shows how simple and clean and elegant the museum is for an event such as a wedding. And the grounds are just stunning. So we have another wedding planned for this year, so it's really exciting. Harvest Fest. Now, I'm not sure how many people, came out. That was in September.
Over 700. Over 700.
I mean, how many people from the council came up? Did you come up?
Mm-hmm.
So you saw 700 people came to that event. It was just amazing. I was busy down running around in the basement, so I kind of missed it. But I did manage to take some pictures of some pretty amazing views on their tables. This is from our community. This is the food that we grow. This is what we should be proud of, right? And 700 people came, vendors, all kinds of people. At that time, we didn't have the summer students. They had left, so we had a lot of volunteers come up. We sold bread and flour, and it was just really an amazing event. The only problem we have for 700 people is the parking, of course, all the way down the street. We're working right now, and we started last year on the Gazette exhibit. And we've had a couple of people from the Gazette come and sort of give us some advice on how that should look. But you can see the inside of the 40 by 40 and what we have. We have papers there, and we have, a couple volunteers, Lee and Sam, and the directors are there. And that's sort of the space that it is going to go into. But it's yet to be seen what it's actually going to look like, because we'll unveil that at the perfect time. Bob's Tool Room. That has been a work of love from many, many volunteers. And let me tell you, this museum has volunteers like you wouldn't believe. We have probably over 20 people that help us out with that museum and the artifacts that come in there, how to do exhibits, how to restore all of the wonderful things that are there, such as these beautiful buggies and that stagecoach that's pictured. It's just the stuff there is just stunning. And the love that goes into the work that goes on in exhibits and all of that is just amazing. Now, these are going to be in the 40 by 60 from what I gather as we start building other exhibits in that area. The Boundary Woodworkers. This is a buggy that is being worked on right now that is going to be going into the museum. So the Boundary Woodworking Guild is a big part of the museum. It's a wonderful partnership that we have. As I hear in our community how partnerships are, and we all know how well they work. Well, this is one of the really great ones that is just a pure joy to be involved with. Halloween. Now, there is Kalena carving pumpkins, and her dad, who brought his friend up onto the grounds, and that was in the front yard of our museum. And we did a glow stick hunt in Halloween for our community. We had about 100 kids come, and we were aiming for the younger children. So we got parents and their younger children, and I was really worried about that run in the dark, but the high school kids did such an amazing job running that. And we probably had about 10 high school kids come up and help us with that. So, it's really nice to see the youth involved with the museum. This is one of my favorite programs, and this is Joan Hart. She is our Indigenous specialist. She does research, and she also does a wonderful program where the District 51 classrooms come up, and the teachers bring their classrooms up here. Joan does a color session on what the colors mean and how digestion is important. And the kids get to see the Sonaics exhibit that you can see there on the screen. And she tells the story of Frog Mountain. So if you guys are ever interested in hearing about Frog Mountain, come on up. It's really actually a wonderful story. And there's Frog Mountain right there. That's Frog Mountain, and it's in Slogan Valley. And you can see that Joan has the classroom, some of the kids in there. We do a coloring of a picture that she's done up of marigolds and different things that are sort of involved in the story. I won't give everything away. She does a wonderful job. Christmas parade. We got involved this year. I'm sure we do every year, but we did up what I think was a pretty big tree for our Christmas parade. It was kind of fun to decorate. So we also did our Christmas luncheon for our volunteers. And this is a really great opportunity where we actually get to spend some time just for the volunteers and the staff and present them with a certificate of appreciation and let them know how much their efforts mean to us. The room is filled with volunteers and laughter, and it's really a great way to end the year and finish up. I was really happy and honored to be part of that. And, you know, all the hard work that everybody's done, I get to step in at the end, but it was wonderful. So this is our museum, what it looks like. This is our beautiful, we're really proud of our meeting room. And we're really starting to promote it now that we have a popular projector, or a powered projector and screen. And it just makes it so that we've now stepped into this decade and we're keeping up with everybody else. And we're really very proud of it. Thanks to the Phoenix Foundation, I mean, with their help, right, we were able to do this. And then we were closed. And so I do want to stop and talk about something that's wonderful down here in the basement of the city. We have our archives, and we have Sue Adrian, who is in charge of that. So that's the picture. Can I? Okay. Sorry. Thank you. There we go. Those are upcoming events. Thank you.
Questions? Councilor Thompson.
Just a comment, the museum has come a long way. And the board's to be congratulated in their management from where it started up again. Yeah. So that's just wonderful.
Councilor Hammond, Councilor Butler.
Yeah, I just have to say I'm totally impressed with the direction that the museum's taking, and I think it's going to be a really integral part of our community, not just now but in the future. With your expansion, I can see it becoming a real draw for tourists and the community alike for education. And I think the programs that you're offering up there are great. I'd love to see that work continue. That's wonderful.
We're planning more too, so.
I was excited to see your Gazette display because my first job when I was 10 years old was setting type at Fort Steele in the printing shop there and working the platinum press and print press. So it's a neat little exhibit. I'd love to come see it. And I'm just wondering, can you send us an email next time, like when you get open again and you have your first open house or event, just to remind me? And I'd love to, just send us off an email. And also thank you for all your financials that you've provided. It looks like everything's in order. But I remember last time you were talking about your admission rates, and I'm just wondering if you're planning on an increase this year, because they seemed quite cheap last year.
I just got to change that. Okay, so we are looking really hard at the admissions, and we did try a little bit in the winter time. Was not the time to try it. It was just the worst time to try it. We actually had people walk away from the museum. It was really very disappointing. And it's not that, we are definitely thinking about an admission, and we're just trying to figure out when the best time is. You can see the donations that we've received for 2017 per month, that's all we get, so that's what we're getting at the door by donation. So we are hard looking at that fee and trying to figure out the best time to implement it. Any suggestions? It's
I remember the last time you were here and you talked about the amount of programs you're doing for School District 51 and with the kids coming.
Yes.
And suggested that perhaps you approach School District 51 for partnership with sponsorship because you're providing them with educational platform. I'm just wondering if you were successful with
They
that.
do pay us $50 per classroom that comes up, so that's really a very fair amount of money
Yeah.
for the students to come and visit. I would not want to charge them any more than
Okay,
that.
so there was funding.
Yeah, it covers the wages and also, yeah, and they get a lot out of it too, so
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
Councillor Butler.
I'm just not seeing it there. So what is your price of admission and what did you try and raise it to that scared people? Is
We
it so
didn't
cheap?
have an admission in the beginning,
Uh,
but it was by donation. And so we had put it up to adults $5, and then after
That's
that,
what we wanted.
and then people found out, I guess it was because they were coming up for free before, and then they found out we put the admission fee, and they just walked away.
We
did lose quite a few of them that did
They didn't
not
wanna
want to
pay
pay.
admission?
No,
It was disappointing, but it's just a matter of how we present it to them, and we just have to get our language so that we can present it to them as, because you don't go anywhere without paying a fee.
Yeah.
They're like, it's just a thing, right? So it's $10 for November. That's all we brought in versus the donation that we would have got probably $60.
$10 per adult?
We got $5 per adult, so we got 2 adults that came and visited
Oh, I
us in
see.
November. And then $20 we got in December. And at that point, we said, well, okay, this isn't a good time to initiate that. It's a slow period for the museum. As you can see, we only got like 65 visitors in December. So we just have to, I think maybe we're going to look at April or May and put that in place and make it a done deal, right?
yeah.
Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kennedy.
I mean, as you said, it's you can't go anywhere without paying a fee. And I know Lee and I, some years ago, took our kids on a trip, and we went to visit museums, and we had to pay.
We had to pay everything,
And
everywhere
so,
we went.
yeah.
And even,
It's not unusual, and
No.
I would encourage you to consider that.
I think we have to become comfortable with how we present it to the public when they walk in the door, and just it's a natural thing. I have to take some time and go around to all the museums in our area and see what they're charging and just come up with a cost. Like that's how much it costs. $5 adult, $2 a kid. End of story.
yeah, we will implement it in the summertime because tourists do expect to pay, but I think it's a lot in the wintertime, it's just the community that comes up, and they figure they want it for nothing, so.
When you first open.
Yes, April 1st.
Councillor Hammond and Councillor Rowe.
So right now you've got $2,721, and then you tried to implement a $5 fee. Even if you only charged $1, you would have got $5,900.
Yeah.
Right. You're absolutely right.
So if you continue with your donation box, and then you can either go $1 per entry, or by donation suggestion $2, and hopefully people will, okay, we'll suggest $2. That's not bad, and they'll get a toonie out of their pocket, or you'll get $1.
Yeah.
But even if you cashed in $1 for every visitor that came through there, you'd be at almost $6,000.
I think we were just alarmed when people turned around.
Yeah, at $5, that's a huge steep when you're going from a volunteer, like a donation for nothing. Also, you charge for the venues that when
Yes,
people
we
are
do.
booking their meetings.
I didn't put that up.
Okay, so for weddings,
Yeah, weddings is
For-
$500 to
okay,
use the venue.
right, and AGMs.
They range. If they're nonprofit, they're half price, so they're about $150, and then $125, $250 if you're using the meeting room.
Okay, so there are other
I think
opportunities
our
there for
pricing
Yes.
is good,
to generate revenue.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I just didn't put it there. Sorry.
Councillor Ross, Councillor Tripp, and Councillor Butler.
Thank you. So my understanding is mostly the locals who are turning away and walking out.
Yes.
Okay. So they're used to having it free and coming in. So having, say $2 for an adult, $5 for a family, or by donation, then at least it would send a message to the locals that free isn't an option.
I think we need to maybe do that in an article in the Gazette as well.
Yeah.
So, as we move forward, this is where we're needing to go.
Anybody who's traveled anywhere and gone to these tiny little heritage museums across Canada realize there's a huge cost to this service that you're providing. So I think the message to our community is this is a treasure. We need your assistance in order to maintain it and keep it open. So, like even $2 for an adult. I mean, I've been to lots of little museums like this across Canada, and it's like, I have $5? Sure. $2? Oh my goodness. And if I'm with my kids and it's $5 for an entire family, there's 2 adults, that's a great investment.
That's really good to hear.
So,
That's positive
for visitors,
Yeah.
I think that's great. Like $2 an adult, $5 for family, so it's not a barrier to participation for people who are on a budget. And for the locals, or by generous donation. Maybe put the word generous in there.
Yeah.
And don't have a box, have a glass jar, so you can see how much. And then write silence is golden, so there's no coins that come in.
We actually do, our donation boxes actually got glass.
Good.
Yes,
But you have to have it right there, so you actually will watch it while
and we always stick a couple $5.
Seed it with 20s. Seed it with 20s.
Yeah.
Anyway, good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Councilor
you.
Tripp, Councilor Butler, Councilor Hamel.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yes, excellent work you guys are doing out there. It's just a great facility for us to have in the community. And furthering Councillor Ross's suggestion about family, a family thing, I see you do have memberships that you sell,
Yes.
and I'm just wondering for the local people who live here, an investment maybe in some kind of a membership that would have, because you have many events up there, and I know people, something like a family membership of, maybe even $30, $25, $30, even $40. That people then could take their kids up there, go through the museum any time of the year, and because I know there's lots of times that you'd want to go through there just more than once, especially if you're local and you're going to be up there anyway at some of the events.
Sometimes we come 3 or 4 times, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Our membership fee is $12 a year per person. But for a family, it's $20. So
Okay, so
you
you
still
already
get a
have
break.
that.
Yeah.
And that would allow them to come in it's any time, or you don't really monitor that?
I'm not sure that.
We've never really, if you remember, they come in and they pay anyway. A lot of the members do put money in the donation box. Yeah, as well, yes.
Councilor Butler.
It was the same question.
Councilor Hammond.
Yeah, mine was sort of on that line, but I wanted to extend it a little bit further. Have you thought of partnering with a passport with Gallery 2, with the Flower Mill, with other attractions?
I would like to work on that.
Look at all the other things that we have within our area, and you could even take it as far as Christina Lake or the museum in Midway, go boundary wide, and sell passports. So for the locals, they get a pass card that allows them to go in unlimited times for the period of the year. And then when their family comes to visit them, or they have guests from out of town all year long or whatever, they come in, but they're going to be more inclined to bring their guests with them because they've got free access. I know they do it in Vancouver. My daughter and I take advantage of that. She's got the passport for the year, so we can go into the police museum, the aquarium. We do different things every time we're down there, but it's on this annual passport, and it encourages her to, she gets in for free. And so I think that might work if you partnered with other attractions through the boundary.
Any other questions? Hearing none.
Thank you
again
very
for the
much, you
presentation.
guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor proceed. Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, moving on to our next item, which is 4C, Subject matter is a quarterly update from the Grand Forks Art Gallery Society. Recommendation is committed to oversee for information to delegate presentation from the Grand Forks Art Gallery Society. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. On behalf of Gallery 2, I'm very pleased to present our first report to the Committee of the Whole for 2018. It's also my first report as the new Director-Curator. With me today, representing the board, is Gary Babin, who is our new Treasurer. So things have been very busy of late at the gallery. On February 3rd, we reopened with our first exhibitions of 2018. Turnout was great, especially for February. We had 50 plus people in attendance. One of the artists was able to attend. Shelley Ross spoke about her work and artistic process to an appreciative crowd. In addition to the main gallery exhibits, the opening was also for the newly minted art rental gallery on the main floor of the building. On now in the Reed Gallery, 3 painters from Powell River bring their different views of landscape to bear with uncultivated ground, paintings from a common edge. Rick Sapella, Megan Dulcie-Dill, and Barbara Langmaid all deal with the wild edges of landscape on the continent. The work is vastly different, yet complementary, and provides an unsettling perspective on the land. In the Fog Gallery, we're very pleased to present Korean Dreams, which brings photography taken in North Korea to Grand Forks. The exhibit aims to shine a light on what for many of us is almost a fictional place. The artistic process uses pictures taken discreetly in North Korea in 2012 on a tourist visa and deliberately obscures parts of them, making for a very dreamlike kind of imagery. This is complemented with extensive label content, which explains the context of each photo. It's quite a compelling exhibition and very timely given the Olympics and the global situation. Finally, in the West Gallery, Shelley Ross from Caslow presents Inner Rainforest, which is a series of abstracted watercolors inspired by trips to the interior rainforest of the Kootenays. This exhibit is both a meditation on nature and an opportunity for visitors to reflect on their own inner rainforest. Since we last presented, Gallery 2 had our AGM in October. There we bid Ted Fogg fond farewell on his retirement. The board renamed the East Gallery the Ted Fogg Gallery in honor of Ted's commitment to Gallery 2 over the years. We welcomed Erica Thorpe and Gary Babin onto our board, and William Cayley and Leora Gesser retired from the board. All in all, we had more than 60 members in attendance, and there was a reception afterwards for Ted. It was a great evening. On the fundraising fund, we had our 26th annual wine tasting, which was a week after I arrived in town. It was, as promised, the social event of the year. I saw many of you there. We sold more than 200 tickets. We upped our business sponsorship this year to 15 businesses supported the event. We had 8 food providers, 16 wineries, a brewery, and a distillery. And we netted just under $15,000, which was directly into Gallery 2's operations. The other advantage of the wine tasting is it brings in a wide cross-section of the community into the gallery. We're always trying to reach out to those people that don't necessarily see a gallery as a place for them to be. It was a really special event. The week after that, we had our annual Artisan Christmas Fair, which is very well supported by the community. This year we had over 800 people through our doors. Over 2 days, there were 21 vendors represented, and our board and volunteers provided hot lunches through the Gallery 2 Bistro. It's another example of different ways we activate the entire building, having people moving throughout. Coming up in 2018, it's going to be a great year. The staff board and volunteers have been working hard behind the scenes in January to get the gallery ready for reopening. We've done a strategic plan renewal workshop. The staff and board had a productive session working at reviewing and refreshing the Gallery 2 strategic plan. The most recent one expired in 2017. This provides us with a great opportunity to build the team and ensure that the organization is moving forward in a coherent way. We've initiated a brand review looking at what works and what needs to be changed with how the gallery presents itself in the community and beyond. Some of this has been launched already with our recent exhibition posters and our new PowerPoint format. We will be rolling it out over the coming year. As a part of our January closure for maintenance, you'll notice new wayfinding signage on the main floor, which is pictured here. The intent of this is to serve to make the visitor experience more coherent and legible, providing consistent signage throughout the building. Part of this has included the launch of our new art rental gallery. As you may know, art rentals were on display in the upstairs hallway. Moving the work downstairs to the East Heritage Gallery allows us to showcase more artists and increase the profile of the art rental program. Finally, as a part of next year's budget process, we are looking at ways of reviewing our asset management process so that we can look to include budgeting for capital items going forward. And then these numbers are very small on the screen. But year to date, this is to the end of December, at 75% of the way through our fiscal year. Our revenue is at 77% of expense expected, and our expenses are at 68%. So we're nicely on track for year end. All in all, the gallery is in great shape. Looking forward to a great year, and it's great to be here. Are there any questions?
That's a Rose.
Thank you. It's great work. I'm really excited about it. I'm sorry I missed the February 3rd event. But I'm excited to come in. I just got home last night being away for a couple weeks and coming in and seeing what's going on in the Korean display and the new artists that are there. I really enjoy, I think the older I get, the more I'm finding the importance of art as an expression of society and where we're going as a society, not just locally, but globally. And I wonder, you know, this past summer I traveled a lot and I went to some galleries and I was just so moved by the stories they told the local communities and the artists that they celebrated. And I'm wondering, is there any way of you knowing how many of the out-of-towners actually visit our gallery? I just think it's such an important part of who we are in Grand Forks. I think it's a great tourist opportunity. And I know when I travel, I have memories in Elbow, Saskatchewan. You know where Elbow is? Yeah, I think so. It's at Lake Diefenbaker. And I stayed there for like 2 nights on the way driving back. And I stopped at the gallery, and I'll never forget that gallery as an example. Or in Regina, or other places where I went to the gallery, and I remember the galleries and the artists and how it really touched me because it really spoke to the community. So, is there a gauge of that? Do you have a way of knowing how many people from out of town actually come?
Thank you, Councillor. Anecdotally, I can say that I was told with the road closures this year and the fires, our attendance spiked due to more people coming through. I can't speak specifically to numbers, having only been on the job for 6 months, but definitely one of the things I'm interested in doing with the gallery is making sure that we provide both adequate fulfilling exhibition needs within the community and leveraging that great opportunity that we have operating the Visitor Information Center and providing visitor services to both locals and the community. So one of the intentions with the wayfinding signage is to make it clear when you come in the back door that you're coming to an art gallery, so that you might be coming in to know where the washrooms are or whether you're going to Christina Lake, but you'll also get this taste of being in a gallery and hopefully be drawn upstairs. One of the things we do need to look at strategically is how we track those numbers and how we get beyond anecdotal.
I suppose you have a guest book, like please sign our guest book. Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad, and Tim, thanks very much for this report. The gallery is also a great thing for us to have in our community, and right on the highway there, it means that people can see it. And with the info center there as well, I know a lot of people in the summer. I talked to several people who were coming in, visiting here from places like Germany and other countries even, and saying that the info center was someplace that they had stopped, gotten information from, and then toured through the gallery. So I think that's a really great place for it to be and a real draw. I don't know how much more you can capitalize on that, but certainly I'm sure you'll be looking at those kinds of things as you get more comfortable in your job and figure out what's working.
That's right.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this community is so blessed to have the cultural assets that it has, with the gallery too, with the Boundary Museum, with a lot of the other things that we have. And I'm just really pleased to see the progress and the direction that the gallery is taking. And again, I encourage you to partner with some of the other museums throughout the boundary for annual passports to try and draw more of the revenue from the locals.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I agree. It's a wonderful asset that we have for a community our size, and I think we really have to acknowledge Richard and Bev Reed, who were the powers that started that gallery. But as with the museum, it's by donation, is it not? And have you, as a board, considered implementing an entrance fee?
That's a great question. My understanding is part of our fee-for-service agreement is based on equal access to the entire community. And it's also in our strategic plan as well as our Societies Act documents that one of the core mandates of the gallery is to provide equal access. I know what we are trying to do, there's a perception in the community that you have to pay to get in, and so what we've been finding is a lot of people come to the gift shop but don't go upstairs because they don't want to pay. So what we are trying to do with the new signage is we're saying free admission because it's free, donations gratefully accepted. It's more like you want to reel them in with the art, and then if you provide that level of service, then there'll be a donation at the other end. I know a lot of institutions struggle with this, and there's different ways of doing it, but that's my understanding.
Thanks, and hope you're enjoying your move here to Grand Forks and your first year. I enjoyed your wine tasting again this year. I was curious though, somebody had mentioned that the tickets, that you were able to sell less tickets this year because of maximum occupancy load, that because you had to include the people at the tables that were serving the wine and your servers that were there, the staff, that it was realized that you've been over occupancy in the past and this year you had to sell less tickets. I'm just wanting to know if that was true or not. And also with the Visitor Information Center, what's your interaction with that and how do you guys work together with the gallery?
Those are both great questions, thank you. My understanding with the occupancy load on the building is it's been sorted out to reflect what we can actually carry in the building. I think with the wine tasting, there's more been a realization that if we sell too many tickets, we're over-promising on the experience people are going to get, and we want to make it a real marquee event where people can come in and really get that experience. And if you start going over 200 tickets sold, it just gets too full. And so it's really about balancing that brand promise with the experience that you get. As director, curator of the gallery, all of the staff are gallery employees, so we operate the visitor information piece as part of our fee-for-service agreement. But so I've been working closely with Dosh and Heather, who are our de facto visitor services department, to look at how we're offering visitor services to the community and beyond, and how that's going to unfold in the future. What I'm hoping to do is really integrate the visitor info piece more closely into the gallery operations so that we are providing a more coherent visitor services experience no matter who you are coming into the gallery and what information.
Mr. Ross?
Thanks, Tim. Forgive my ignorance, I've never managed a gallery, but I really enjoy going to galleries where I know some of the art is for sale. Because if something really captures me, one of my favorite galleries is something called Crescent Hill, and they have some amazing artists there, and mostly Canadian, and they have like the vernissage and the whole openings and things. But a lot of that, people can attend, and they can actually purchase the art of some of their favorite artists. So I don't want to say, I like your rental program. I like it that more of your art's on display, so you're not just having to go through, when they were stacked the way they were. I don't remember, and correct me please, is when you go in and you're having like the openings, that a lot of the art, because I know these artists go from gallery to gallery, right? They're doing a circuit, but the art isn't on sale. Is there, and how that works, like then I guess the gallery might get a percentage. So is that happening with the gallery? I remember going to some of the openings and none of the art is up for sale.
Another great question. My first answer is we're working to increase the profile of the art rental gallery, which really supports the local artist community. Yeah. In terms of the exhibitions upstairs, as a public art gallery, we need to be cognizant of our other funding arrangements with the BC Arts Council because generally works for sale is not the primary goal of a public art gallery. Right. That being said, depending on, like Shelley Ross's work is for sale, right. But that can't be the primary, so we don't extremely promote it because that's not the primary goal of the exhibition program.
Right, but for artists to survive, they need to sell their art.
It's true. So. It's true. While we do, I am happy that one of our, with our status as public art gallery, we pay CARFAC fees, which is the Canadian Artists Federation fee schedule for solo exhibitions and that kind of thing. So artists are compensated for their work. One of the things we're looking at doing for through the Christmas season next year is having a more prominent art exhibition and sale that can carry us through the wine tasting and through the Christmas season. One of the things I noticed this year is it seemed we had our decorations up, but the gallery, it seemed pretty quiet. And we still had quite a lot of traffic coming through the gallery then. So I think one of the things we're looking at is a sort of yearly show and sale that would increase the prominence of that. Right. But it really depends on the exhibition.
Right. And you would do a call out to artists to bring art in at the
potentially, yeah.
Right?
Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you again for the presentation.
Thank you.
All those in favor of receipt? Anyone opposed? So carried. All right, moving along to item 5. There's no regional topics because our local director is not present today. So we move on to 6, presentations from staff. 6A, revision of policy 1603, i.e. the risk management, city electrical outside works. The recommendations of committee of the whole recommends the council to adopt the revised policy 1603, risk management, city electrical, at the February 26, 2018 regular meeting. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? For discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. I was looking at this policy and comparing it between the old and the new, and I'm just puzzled by a few things. First of all, the date of the policy on the original policy states that it was coming through at where's the date on there? September the 11th, 2006. But the policy that I actually have in my in my policy manual at home has the date of September 8th, 2009, and I didn't see any indication that one policy was superseded by another. So that I was a little bit concerned about that. And then when I was looking through the policy and comparing the two of them, the policy that is in front of us now is, to me, I get the sense that this policy really is for safety of the employees and the workplace and the workers, where the original policy stated that the City of Grand Forks is responsible for maintaining the city electrical utility system for the benefit of community. So I didn't actually see that stated in the current policy. So I'm just wondering why that information wouldn't have been included in there. And then also too, on the amendments of this, it says that review and rewrite of existing policy 1603 in conjunction with new operational procedures. We don't actually have those operational procedures in front of us, and the existing policy does have 4 fairly simple procedures there. So that was, I'm wondering why that information wasn't included for us to actually look at and be made aware of if we're going to be approving this policy. The other thing, and it says in the original policy, to maintain the city electrical utility system, including the substation and transmission and distribution equipment. And those items are not included in this new policy. So I see some significant differences here, and I'm just wondering if I could get some response to those questions.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I'll try to go through the points you had there. So, to start, the city doesn't own a substation, so that I don't think should have been in the original policy.
Okay.
This is meant to be an overarching policy that it's not that we didn't have some procedures laid out before, but this put them all together in one place, and we hired an electrical engineer along with our electrical coordinator to go through and develop the needs for the department. So I think some of the key points are like meter changes. Some things have changed in that time. There's fire-resistant clothing. So it lays out what you need and when you would need to wear certain pieces of clothing. So I mean, I believe it's about 220 pages, the whole electrical review and safety procedures that we had done now. So I don't know if that answers most of the concerns, or if you had.
Thank you, Mayor Clymer. Yeah, so then the one that we're looking at here, the policy that basically has the 4 procedures outlined, the original policy that just has the 4 procedures, you're saying is being replaced with a much more comprehensive document?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We're trying not to have procedures in the policy. The policy itself is just to get the overarching I guess theory or decision making behind the procedures.
So you're basically removing them out of this policy in its entirety, right? So if I could just ask another question about then this original policy says that we are responsible for maintaining the city electrical utility system, and that is not actually in the proposed amended policy. So how does that affect this policy? That is actually not in there.
I believe it's implied that that's the department's role is to look after the electrical utility. So we didn't put it in the new policy, but I don't know if Kevin's here, if he wants to speak a bit to that.
So that was just reworded a little bit in the purpose. So to maintain the city electrical utility system. So it's not directly as responsibility, some of that's formatting, but the purpose of the policy is to say, yes, we will maintain the city electrical utility.
And it seems that like it says, guiding principle has gone really from maintaining the electrical facility or utility, which is what what the current policy seems to be the main function of, to more a health and safety aspect. I guess that's kind of what I'm seeing, is that the original intent of the policy was to maintain the electrical facility utility, and now it's gone to ensuring the health and safety of the workers. Is that correct? Because that seems to be what the guiding principle change has been. I'm just wondering, is that appropriate? Should that really be the guiding principle of this policy? Or should the policy be that we should be maintaining the city electrical utility system?
It's the risk management of the electrical utility. So it goes hand in hand with the I guess engineered document that we had put together last year.
Okay, so yeah, so then what we're basically saying is that the original policy really wasn't fulfilling the intent of even the title of the policy, which was risk management. Is that the case?
We had some concerns with the original policy.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to wrap my head around why such differences in one document over another document. So I appreciate your comments.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I find it confusing comparing especially with the new format, trying to see the differences in the policies presented. And I was confused too with the removal of the substation, maintaining the substation and transmission services, because we did have a capital project for $500,000 to build a new substation and $50,000 for the business plan for the new substation. And then it triggered my memory that when we looked at our carry forward projects for this year, that wasn't included in our carry forward projects. So I'm just wondering what happened to those projects, and with it being now removed from the policy, just seems a bit confusing. The other question that wasn't answered was the date on the policy. I think it's important that we get the dates right for when these policies were first implemented.
I don't know if Daniel wants to speak to the dates on the policies. In the legislative drive, that was under the signed, the 2006 one was in there, so we went with that one. So I can't speak to the 2009 one.
Maybe we just check on that before we move forward. And the other questions?
Regarding substation center.
So we did do some work in that regard with feasibility and engineering, and we feel comfortable with where we're at with that. But that'll be, I guess, a conversation for a later date this year. The bottom line is, I guess, we don't feel it's relevant right for this policy. This is more based on the meaning, safety, and the procedures of the electrical department.
Councilor Brewer.
Yeah, it's, as the manager said, it's risk maintenance, and this one fits better with the title as said. The older one was, the older one with the procedures in it doesn't really address that, and to look at the differences, if we feel that the old one's not working, why do we want to compare it to the new one? That was it.
Yeah, I'm still a bit confused about removing the maintenance of the substation off of here moving forward, considering that is in our plans. So I would prefer to defer this until we get more information on that project. on whether or not we need to include that in our policy.
Councillor Thompson.
I don't have an issue with approving the policy as presented, and I would think that if our management team had concerns about a substation and the rest, they would either amend this policy or bring another policy forward. So I would not want to defer this for the safety of our crew.
Actually, to me, it does say that, to maintain the city electrical utility system, including distribution equipment, other related equipment and accessories, in a safe manner within the approved financial resources. So I'm pretty sure that covers substations. It's the whole system, not just one piece.
Thanks, just for clarification, Mr. Mayor, through you. I thought I heard that the maintenance of the substation was not in the purview of the city of Grand Forks. So it makes sense that it be removed from the policy if it's not in our purview to even.
We have a $500,000 project.
That's our contribution towards it.
No building a new one.
I know.
I guess with the policy, we're trying to take a large, kind of an umbrella view. It's not to point out specific items or rubber glove work or certain things in the policy that's laid out in the underlying document, the electrical safety and operation procedures of what we work on and how we work on it safely.
So this policy is more targeting the risk management aspect of this policy, in other words, here. And the other part is generalized anyway because we know the corporation's obligation as far as electrical utility goes. Am I understanding that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, so just one last question then on that amendments, which is the last line in that policy where it says February 2018, review and rewrite of existing policy 1603. I'm assuming that's what this is, but then it says with new operational procedures. So where would those operational procedures now show up?
This is the, I guess, the first page or the overall arching document for the electrical department safety and operational procedures. So we have that document that we can make available for council if they'd like to go through and see what the guys do and why they do it.
Right.
No.
So the secondary document is more of an annex document to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, it just lays out, like I say, if you need FR clothing, it says if you're changing a meter, you're going to have this type of clothing on for this procedure, changing the meter, or it goes through what we do on a day-to-day basis. It basically lays out what the requirements are for us as employers and to do the job safely.
So the procedures are in a reference document, so to speak.
Correct.
Thank you.
So if I just might add, so what's getting rewritten now is this policy, and then what is being an addendum to that is the operational procedures that are already on file.
Once this, or if this policy is approved,
Right.
then it becomes the first part of the operations procedures manual for us.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to manager. Are there not provincial regulations that would be incorporated in the procedure document? Provincial regulations?
So there are overhead safety standards, and there's different documents that we referenced or looked at to make sure that we would be compliant with the things that we do, and of course the Workers' Compensation Act and that. So we did take I think a good look at the safety program with the electrical department and brought it up to where we feel it needs to be.
Area Manager of Development Engineering.
Just want to clarify, we're separating out, this is something we're going to be moving forward with, this policy and procedure. So policy is what we're going to do, procedures are how we're going to do it. And so we have a lot of policy documents that have policies and procedures combined. In some cases that's okay, but in most cases it's not. It actually confuses the issue. So this is one of the first ones that we're working on and cleaning that up.
Councillor Butler.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I definitely agree that policies and procedures should be separated. That way it's a lot cleaner, and council's responsible for the policies and staff is responsible for the procedures and how they carry out the policies that council implements. My concern is that I don't want to be responsible for their procedures, and I'm worried that by approving this document, I'm saying that I am in agreement with the procedures, which I have not read or seen, and I have to assume that they're in compliance with Workers' Compensation Act, but I don't want to be on the hook for them because I haven't read them, and I just feel like I'm approving the procedures here today and not just the policy. Yeah.
Councillor Grog.
Yeah, we're not. When, if we approve this policy, that's it. It's a policy. Staff is not going to endanger our workers. They're following any provincial guidelines, WorkSafe, BC, all of that. And even if I did read the procedures, how the hell would I know what's correct and what's not correct when I finish? So it doesn't say that we're signing off on procedures because we don't have the expertise to write electrical procedures. So it just doesn't make sense. I'm not sure why there seems to be such a concern over something as simple as this, like cleaning up stuff and
Because it's a significant policy change, that's why. It's a significant policy change. That's what we've been looking at. We've been trying.
And that's why it's changed.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not a tradesperson, and so I would assume, like for sewer and electrical, that there would be policy and procedures. And I don't know about sewer and electrical. I'm not a plumber, nor am I an electrician. And I know the code book for electrical is about that thick, and for building it's that thick, and for water and sewer, the code book is that thick, and it's very difficult to even pass those exams as a tradesperson because of the thickness, and it's constantly changing. So I think, for decision makers, it's to pass policy, and then the details of how that policy is operationalized is the job of our trained staff and the tradespeople that we have employed by the city of Grand Forks. So of course there has to be a level of trust. You're experts in your field. Those manuals, and it's not in my purview. And I would not be so pretentious as to feel that I need to check you out. I need to make sure the policy's in place and trust you that you're doing a good job.
Exactly, may I add on that, Councillor Ross, exactly. We're deviating into an area which is strictly operational. It's not in our purview. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think Ms. Sheets explained what's happening here is that we are getting rid of council's responsibility is to set policy, not procedures. And the policy that this replaces included procedures, which goes beyond the scope of our responsibility. And so I think we are belaboring a point that doesn't need to be belabored because we are just implementing, being asked to approve and implement a new policy.
We've got to have those code books and cross-check everything with those code books and WSIB rules.
Councillor Butler.
No.
So just to respond to that, it's a reasonable question that you guys are asking. But as councillors, our job is to listen to the taxpayers and to listen to people in our community that are in those fields and that might have concerns. And you're right, I'm not an expert in those fields, but I do listen to the people in the community that might come to me with questions. So I'm just wondering, I have been asked a question, are our lockout procedures in compliance with WorkSafe BC?
Can I ask directly to the city?
Just asking.
Let the question be asked directly to the city and the staff will answer. Because that's an operational question again. Elected officials should not be deviating into those areas. What's the purpose? Because it does, with all due respect, does the public individuals even have the experience again to ask these questions? Back to the same thing. We don't have the experience. Do we know that the public does? So, let them, so I'll duel it out with the staff and management. I'm going to call a question on this. Councillor Tripp, this is the last kick of the bucket.
Thank you, Mayor Conlon. Yeah, I just wanted to say that having gone through this and looked at it, I did have questions. I feel that staff has answered those questions adequately to satisfy my concerns and curiosities. And so, you know, I'll be voting for this because I do feel that staff has gone ahead. But what I don't appreciate are the little jabs and innuendos that come from other councillors that try and put down what the certain serious questions that other councillors are asking. We're here to respect each other's opinions and to listen and collaborate.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. 6B, subject matter, Cannabis legalization critical path from engineering and development. The recommendation is the committee of the whole recommends to council to approve the bylaw introduction and amendment timeline as presented at the February 26, 2018 regular meeting. Councillor Hammond. Councillor Butt.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank staff for bringing this forward. It's kind of funny because I had that in my report tonight as a suggestion, so I'm glad we're all thinking along the same lines. Looking at the timeline here and just wondering, didn't mark it, when are we planning on bringing this forward for the zoning change? Because I was just wondering, we also have the zoning bylaw on the agenda for tonight, and I'm just wondering if we can just do these both together.
Garcia.
Your Worship, there are entirely two different areas here, the ones that are coming for consideration, the ones that staff will be working. And then this would be the next piece in here, so if we had to kind of blur the lines, it will present a lot of problems for staff to try and implement things, just for the fact that they want to have that public survey put in and they want to have that time. So in answer to Councillor Butler's question, is that the intention of staff is that changes for the cannabis proposals is looks like it's destined for March for first and second readings.
Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, this is great work and definitely something that we need to get on. So I was really happy to see that this was included in our agenda package today. But I did just have a concern as well on the timeline. I think it says that this is to come forward for the February 26th meeting. And but the first item on the critical path here is to introduce the public survey in February. So I just was wondering if maybe these timelines are just a little bit onerous for staff to complete. And I was wondering if maybe things could be pushed, you know, you would feel more comfortable pushing things back even maybe half a month. So if you're going February, March, April, May, June for the different items that you got there. Because it just seems to me that to try and get a public survey out between February 26th and the end of the month and get information back and all that's going to be pretty tight for you.
Your Worship, it's kind of looking at the timelines as staff determined that this was like the best route to take with the timeline, just for the fact that we don't know
towards July when the municipal thing is coming down. It might be a little sooner, it might be a little later. So we just want to make sure that we still allow enough time for these different pieces to happen. On the other hand, we're still trying to get ahead of the game before this all comes down. So that's why.
Okay. You think you can do it?
Councillor Butler.
Councillor Ross.
Councillor Ross.
Spoken, yes.
Then Councillor Butler.
Yeah, thanks very much for this. I was, and I'm, Mr. Mayor, through you, I always find it, I found it a little bit confusing. I just came back from Ottawa, and there's a lot of buzz in Ottawa around what's going on. It's going to come down in July. It won't come down before July, I'm sure, but it won't. It's not. And there's a lot of talk about every single town and village and city across Canada and how they're going to deal with it. So I'm just wondering, having a public survey, I see the point, but it is what it is, and I'm just wondering what kind of consultation. I know there's a big discussion that's been happening at SEM. There's lots of meetings going on in Ottawa right now across, municipalities across the country on how they're going to roll this out. It's already being rolled out. It's been rolled out for decades. We have a craft cannabis industry in British Columbia that's functioned very, very well. And I was in Nelson a couple weeks ago, and it's continuing to function very well in Nelson with some guidelines that they put in place, including a moratorium on any more shops opening at the moment. But so I'm just wondering, are we looking at what's going on across Canada, other towns and cities of our size, and how they're going to manage it? Or are we just reinventing the wheel because we think we're so unique and that we need special rules? So, I'm more inclined to work collectively with other municipalities across the country and determine what is best and have some consistency there, rather than, just figuring it out for ourselves, which seems like a monumental. And I'm really concerned about the craft cannabis industry and what's going to happen to that.
Yeah, we're not going to be recreating the wheel here. It's going to be, I think, with a lot of communities the same size as ours, we're going to have to work together on this and figure out who's doing what, because it's fairly new item, and we just basically got information, basically a to-do list on how to move forward with this. The Planning Institute of BC put together a presentation last week.
Who? What?
The Planning Institute of BC.
Oh, okay.
And so that was just, to help us moving forward with what we need to do as a community for our zoning bylaw and setting up our bylaws. And then the legal firm that put on the presentation sent us out on the 6th a list of this is how to move forward. And this is provincial. The Planning Institute of BC put this on, so we won't be recreating the wheel. We'll be working with the Planning Institute and their guidelines and the lawyer that sent us this briefing and the to-do list. And certainly, we'll be consulting with other communities to see how things are working in their communities and which direction they're going.
Councillor Butler, Councillor Hammond, Councillor Drew.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, when I was at the LGLA last week, our legal firm, Young Anderson, put on a presentation, and I imagine staff has been in contact with them, and they really seem to have a good handle on how to move forward with this, and the amount of leeway that municipalities have in designing something that works best for their community, because every community is different and has different concerns on how this is to be rolled out. There's certain things they said we can do is limit how many business licenses we give out, where we want to see production and processing, which is actually one thing I wanted to mention in here. I didn't see anything in here for production and processing, and that was a big concern of a lot of communities. When you have large grow facilities within a community, there's a big smell, and people don't want that in their neighborhoods. Also with the processing, because of the chemicals used for the extraction, there's been a danger of explosions in some of these facilities, so not having those anywhere near a residential neighborhood was something that needed to be considered. So I was just hoping in here that we could put for our zoning bylaw, retail cannabis business may operate, and also production and processing facilities. that that's a consideration when we move into our zoning bylaws. So.
Yeah, just getting back to Councillor Ross's comments, the public survey, I'm just wondering, like, can you give me an example of what kind of questions you're going to ask? Because, I mean, we are regulated, it is legalized, and if we're following, you know, plans like other communities, I'm just wondering what impact a community survey will have, or if we're just, you know, delaying the process.
It's going to be a question for or against.
Because it's not going to matter if people say they're against it. It's really not going to matter at all because it's a legal issue. So I'm just wondering what impact, what kind of questions are going to be in the survey that will be relevant to changing the way we operate on this, without what's within our scope to change.
I think location.
Is that it? Just location?
Cabins there.
So the two goals of the survey will be where would you like the retail premises, as well as where would you like to see public consumption, if at all.
Councilor Drift, Councilor Butler.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Conrad. I was wondering the very same thing, and I was thinking that probably the questions wouldn't be in anything along the lines of are you for or against it, but other things that we would be able to use that the community would be concerned about. And I think Councillor Butler's comment about processing smells and that kind of thing is also something that maybe possibly could be put in the survey as well.
Well, that would be the manufacturing aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other suggestion that Young Anderson made was that you could write into your zoning bylaws that retail sales, like if you have your commercial area, that you have retail sales, that you write in there, retail does not include sales of cannabis. And then if somebody did want to put in a cannabis store, they would have to apply to amend the zoning, and then that would trigger a public hearing so that the public would then have input on whether or not they wanted that in a specific zone.
You know, I thought Councillor Butler had a good point with regard to the production and processing of that, if that's an issue that we even want to consider having within the boundaries of the city limits. So perhaps staff could think about that and come back to us.
Yeah, Les Johnson, GFTV. I'm just curious of the 2 points that were pointed out for the public survey, where it might be sold and where it might be consumed. Are they not, in a sense, moot points? I mean, let's take the second one, where it might be consumed. Well, unlike alcohol, which can be consumed in places behind closed doors legally, wouldn't this... We have laws against smoking in public and exposing people to secondhand smoke. And now, I know that there is no real nicotine problems, but there are the tar problems, et cetera, associated with smoking cannabis products. So I'm wondering whether, and this is all a moot point, if we find out that it falls under the same purview of the same laws. So you can't smoke it in the bar because you can't smoke cigarettes in the bar. So asking the public where publicly pot could be consumed if it's smoked would be like a non-issue, wouldn't it? I mean, we don't have that control at this level. The other one, retail, okay, as I understand it, it's still a bit in flux. Each province wants to deal with it their own way, and if the only place you can sell it in BC, when they finally decide on that, is in the same places you buy liquor, then...
No, that's not how they're doing it.
That's not how they're doing it here? Okay, so...
Cigarettes.
Okay.
No, we're not allowing it to be sold in the liquor stores.
They're not allowing it to be sold.
No.
So there'll be pot shops.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, LCB pot shops.
Okay, so that point I can see being on the survey, but the other one, like I said, if it falls under the purview of the anti-smoking bylaws or laws, that's a moot point. That's all.
Cannabis.
Well, there's already provision.
Councilor Tripp.
if anyone had ideas, like good ideas of what questions might fit on that survey, would they be able to maybe send them in or have some way of advising?
I just think that before we send out the survey, maybe we need to check with federal and provincial regulations, because I remember seeing on the news last week that, and I'm not sure if it's provincial or federal, that there would be it would not be allowed to be smoked and consumed in public places or outdoors. It would be fine in your own privacy of your own home. So that could be a provincial regulation already that's coming down. It would save us having to question it because it's already out there. So that's just one of the things.
Councillor Crockett and Councillor Thompson.
Can I get an answer to my question?
About contributing to the survey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What the survey is going to be addressing is only what we're allowed as a municipality to ask questions about, because we're not going to be overstepping provincial or federal regulations. So it'll be where we have the gaps between provincial, federal, and municipal level. It's just going to be where we're allowed to mess around, basically. So that's how the questions will be, and it will be in regards to our zoning bylaw, our SCP, our existing bylaws, and any other bylaws that we need want to bring in, because currently we don't have a smoking bylaw. We have about 2,500 bylaws, but so we don't currently have a smoking bylaw. So that's something that we look at bringing forward, and it wouldn't just be for cannabis consumption; it would be for all tobacco and vape products and everything. So that's in the report. The last one under bylaw is the smoking bylaw that we'd be looking at bringing in. So we will, once we fully understand what we're allowed to do, which we're working on, then the survey will be based on that.
But our smoking bylaw would be trumped in any event by provincial or federal smoking bylaw or a smoking law, because I don't think a municipal bylaw can trump a provincial bylaw.
We can make it stricter than the
But it still does not mean it will be implemented. Province, feds still have the authority to override it.
Then we never bylaw.
Because in the old days, if a municipal bylaw or policy was better than the provincial one, they could supersede, but that element does not exist anymore. Not as far as I heard. Councillor Crock.
Yeah, just like the states that have legalized recreational, you can't consume that in public.
Exactly.
You buy it from the store, you take it home. Period. If you're consuming it in your car and they pull you over and they pull it down, well, guess what? You're not allowed to do that.
Unless you're cheap
right?
and drunk.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so it's like when it first came up and they said, where would it be consumed? Like I can see like the old protest of the 420 and stuff like that, but it's not going to be allowed to be consumed publicly, basically anywhere.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I like the questions that are going to be on the survey. Council may recall an issue we had when we were first on council with when the neighborhood discovered that there was a dispensary on 68, and absolutely livid about that. And we had representation, I believe we had at one of our meetings. So I think that is something that the public would like to be consulted on, and where it can be consumed. Let people have an opinion on that, and if we, as a council, can accommodate through our own rules and regulations that aren't superseded by senior levels of government, fine. But I think the public is going to want to be consulted on this particular issue, and I commend our staff for bringing this forward. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. If there are any further questions, I'm going to call I'm going to call the question for discussion. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. All right, moving on to item 6C, which is the monthly highlight reports from department managers. Recommendation is committee of the whole receives the monthly highlight reports from department managers. Mover, please, Councillor Ross. Discussion, Councillor Brock. Any more discussion?
Oh, I forgot. I was going to
Second. Councillor Butler.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I emailed out a couple of questions to staff last week on the reports. One was for the bylaw officer. Apparently the camp was burned, the homeless camp was burned out behind the BMX track. Capital projects, posted railway crossing bid opportunity. I wasn't sure what that was about. And I was wondering if our corporate officer could give us a bit more information on the LGMA officer boot camp that he attended.
First. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Butler. At the end, the corporate officer boot camp basically educates new staff members in roles of corporate services regarding all the potential obligations, statutory requirements, regulatory tasks that we need to comply by. It's an overview regarding agenda preparation and minute taking, best practices, procedures, must-dos, where you can't do it any different anymore. It has to do with governing body operations, where a report and recommendation for management and commissions and committees are discussed, as well as some items regarding for newly elected officials. We have elections coming up, so there was a big section, half a day was spent on elections processes, best practices, bylaws regarding that, which will come to council in the near future for review. So, yeah, that's my part.
Okay. On the bylaws, bylaw officers, questions?
Certain councillor, through your worship, Fire Chief, maybe you might want to respond to that. I wasn't there. I have no knowledge of what actually occurred other than there was a fire in the camp.
Yeah, I can only add a little bit. So we responded with our engine and crew, and the camp was fully involved. The resident of the camp was not there. When the camp was involved, we don't know how or why the fire started. That's about all I can say.
Did it catch on the trees, or was it just the actual
camp.
stuff?
Just camp.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Kate for the Gazette. Through you to staff, Your Worship. The second-hand dealers bylaw, when can we expect that coming before council?
I believe that Mr. Bruce is working on it, and I think there's a plan.
Sure, through the mayor. We do have a draft copy of that bylaw circulating through staff as we speak. I would hope within a few weeks, whenever it suits council's agendas and time constraints, that we would see a draft document for your review.
Thank you.
Hopefully shortly.
Thank you.
I just have that one more question about the railway crossing bid opportunity.
Yes, through the mayor, this is part of our overall wastewater treatment plant project. This is another component moving forward, so it's getting a right of way to go underneath the railroad over to from the lagoons over to the public works side of the railroad.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the receipt? Anyone opposed? So carried. All right, we have no reports of discussion, proposed bylaws for discussion, information, we have none of those, so we'll move on to questions from the public. The gentleman in the back row.
I've got two questions and one comment, Mr. Mayor. First question.
To identify yourself.
My name's Rod Zielinski.
I mean?
Rod Zielinski.
Thank you.
The first one is on manager's planning. I see that there's a continued work on sewer phasing plan project. Can you tell us what that's about?
Yeah, last year we got a grant to work on a sewer phasing plan, so it's to look at the unserviced areas of the city and then determine where to potentially go to next with sewer phasing, or whether or not we can afford to, and looking at the economics of it. And yeah, so it's a grant project that we got this year, and it will be completed on March 31st of this year.
So March 31st, we'll have the plan presented to council, and you can see.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
March 31st, you're saying the plan will be presented to council and the public can see what
The project has to be wrapped up by March 31st, which is provincial fiscal end year. And so we should have our, the report will be submitted, and yeah, it should be pretty much ready to go. We'll bring it to council shortly after that.
Back to the electrical safety plan. Is it possible to take a look at that?
We don't normally make those, I guess, available to the public. If you have certain concerns, please come by and we can have a conversation about that.
Okay, so, and that is my concern. I think the comment was made that in the covered document, additional policy statements, and knowing that council is in charge of the safety program, I'm just concerned that council doesn't know what's in that document. And I can tell you from my experience, if it's the same document that I saw, there are places in there where council is committing to things, accepting this, that aren't compliant with either CSA or WorkSafe. And I'd be very concerned if I was sitting in the chair. So, thank you.
Gentleman in the back.
Name is Gene Cook, and I wanted to speak a few minutes on behalf of the Vienna Woods area. It goes back about, and I just have to say, I had asked the delegation to appear here. Yeah, I can. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be on the agenda for meetings.
Just push the gray button. That's it.
Yeah, you're on.
Yeah, it's working.
So I had asked the delegation to appear because I wasn't going to be here at the prior meeting, and we didn't have enough information to bring forward due to various conditions, the weather, bad roads, a computer that didn't work, and so on. So there was nothing to offer. At the same time, it was a little too rushed. There wasn't enough time given, I believe, to the public to be able to respond. So since I've returned, I've been gathering information, and I've sent upwards of 60 pages of material to all the councillors and to the input at Grant Force BC. I couldn't tell if what my email showed is that for Councillor Thompson and Councillor Hamlet, they possibly didn't receive all the documents.
No, I didn't get any either.
It all bounced back, and I don't know why. And
I got, came to me.
Did it come through for you?
I've been having issues with my email, so.
None of it worked, and I tried two or three times to send it, and I don't know why, but it wouldn't go through. So I sent it to the info at Grand Forks with the link to it, see it from there. So I've been gathering information on the pines and the commitment we had from the prior city. It actually goes back 14 years, and I have an article from the paper that describes where the council of the day had, I could read it to you if you want it, but it takes some time. So, but the council of the day had agreed that what happened was they inadvertently, there were about 3 acres of the Vienna Woods. It was clear cut, And at the time, there was concern about pine beetle in the pines, and so there was what Councillor Crog had told me at the time, there was about up to 30 trees that were supposed to be removed individually, and that was the end of it. But for whatever reason, the CAO today, and I got this from Sean Mackay with the logging company, gave instructions to clear cut the entire 6 acres of pines. And we came home from trail that day from the appointment, and in 2 hours, he had already knocked down about 3 acres of that. And so I managed to get them stopped. I called various councillors and the mayor of the day, and it's covered in this news article from the Gazette in March of 2004. So what happened was the mayor of the day and the council apologized for the error, and there was a meeting at the seniors drop-in center, and Councillor Krog was there, and he offered his apologies, and his comment was that they, in essence, dropped the ball. That what happened was it was done without their knowledge. So the decision that was made by council of that day in March of 2004 and thereafter was that the damage done would be cleaned up, and then there would be a transplant program instituted or put into place so that we would in essence reinstate the pines. And the article, as I say, covers it. But what the council did was they passed a motion to reinstate the pines and keep it as a forest in perpetuity for the community to enjoy and to provide a home for various species of wildlife, and in particular birds that live in that area. Having said that, it was left that way, and there was to be a committee, and it was myself and a neighbor, a fellow by the name of Colin Harris, and 3 council members were to get together and decide specifically on what trees were to be planted. As it turned out, it was up to the city to call us to arrange a meeting, and we would go through that.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt you. My point here is, are you presenting a whole presentation here in the form of a delegation, or do you have a question? This is a question for you. Can you please, with all due respect, get to the point of the question? Because if you want to do a presentation, you have to come forward as a delegation.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So let's cut to the chase, in other words.
Yeah, I only needed to do this to give you a bit of background information. So the question of the day is, will you honor the decision made by the council in 2004 and once again reinstate, make a firm commitment to reinstate the forest and put it back into the condition it was? I believe it behooves all of you to show an element of leadership and foresight that you provide, as well as supporting the community in other ways, but you also support the community from an environmental perspective. So I've sent you all the information. I hope you will read it and consider it. And I would like to get a response when you're done.
Thank you. Or CEO.
Your Worship, we did a little bit of background check back when Mr. Cook first asked to do delegation, and we did look up, there was a resolution, it was back in 2004, I don't have it in front of me, but there was about a 2 or 3 parter, and one of the pieces was that the city was going to look in and check with the province to see if there was something that could change the status of the zoning to parks, I believe it was. And then that there was also going to be a tree committee to come up with options. And checking back on the persons that were actually at the city at the time, because that was before my time, is that it never came to fruition. And just by looking at our zoning bylaw, that whatever, if it did transpire with the province and they said no, or whatever it was, there's no caveats or anything that says that it's preserved park. So that didn't, nothing came with it after that case. So that's information that I found on it. So.
Thank you. Councillor Butler.
I'm just curious, is council bound by the decision of previous councils? Like motions that were passed by previous council, or are we to honor those?
For the most part, there are different pieces that council can be binding on. I think that different decisions come by with different changes of time as well. The fact that there was nothing else that came of it maybe indicated, like I said, I can't speak because I wasn't there at the time, that nothing came of it, and so there was nothing that was pursued.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Can you turn off your mic, sir, please?
Sure. Through the Mayor, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for a resolution regarding the protection of the natural area to be binding, would either be through bylaws, was done for Johnson Flats 2 years ago, or through an establishment of covenant on the property that would prevent that. So those would be binding decisions that would require those kind of things to be in place. The resolutions, as it were, would be, to direct work towards those kinds of things, but it looks like that wasn't accomplished.
So in actuality, there's nothing in place right now. Thank you. Councilor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I thank Mr. Cook for sending us so much information about the importance of these types of forested areas, and also my great concern is for the endangered species or species at risk that live in that forest. We had an experience in our home a couple of months ago where this huge owl came and landed in our backyard, and I mean, what a magnificent bird. And I know that's a real rarity, and for us to be destroying the habitats where these creatures live, especially when we're moving forward and being so innovative and so forward thinking on our riparian areas and areas that are used for groundwater and restoration and that kind of thing. I'm wondering why the city didn't move ahead with the request that Mr. Cook made back in March of 2016, where he did come forward to council and he asked what we were going to be doing to ensure the viability of and protection of Vienna Woods. It seems that request just basically fell through the cracks. And so I'm pleased that he's brought it forward. I would like council to consider moving forward on his request to make that area, restore that area back to an actual forest and rezone that, so that forest is there in perpetuity for all the future generations who will benefit from that.
My only curiosity in all of this is why all of a sudden the concern and the interest in all of this.
Because Mr. Cook has brought it forward, and he did ask last year.
That's a general question to everyone.
He did ask last year.
To our staff member, Manager of Development Engineering, and then Councillor Butler and Councillor Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the inquiry from a member of the public was brought forward because of the advertising for land sale. That was following our statutory process in the fall. So we advertised for 2 dates in the Gazette and following a developer remembering on the property. And so there is a process in place or underway for discussion about that, and that's basically the timing of the inquiry to bring these values to question. Now, following 2016, the inquiry from Mr. Cook and others with various natural properties across the city, the department undertook a sensitive ecosystems inventory. It's in the final draft stage of review with the professional biologists right now, and it's looking at the conservation values across the city, with particular focus on city-owned land, but also the natural areas that are remnant on private properties as well. And it's identifying those lands with sensitive attributes as well as otherwise important natural features. So that report will be brought forward, I believe by next month. We're looking at for review, but we wanted to make sure that the baseline information of all the city's ecosystems were in place before major development decisions were made. So I think that basically answered for the context.
Thank you. Councillor Butler and Councillor Hammond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Watt. I was just hoping he could refresh my memory. This topic came up, I believe, in 2016 because the city was doing some sort of training in there. We were cutting some trees, and it was identified that there was rapid nest in the area. I went out myself and saw the owl nests out there on the property. And at that time, we stopped the work, I believe, because those nests were on the property. So if that's the case, I'm just wondering how we plan on developing a property that does have endangered species on it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was my project there. We had a training exercise happening for some, tree falling / chainsaw exercise. It was actually on the airport grounds where those trees were taken down. At that point, the danger trees. It was an unsafe environment in general for our crew to go out there and do any maintenance, so these guys offered their support. Also being an airport, it's not a good idea to have trees there. There was one owl in that area that was in discussion, which was on the airport directly, so it's a different property altogether. However, again, birds by an airport, bad idea.
I just want to add one thing in terms of any development decisions in general that are undertaken that near potentially sensitive habitat, is that the process would be, and this speaks to any city properties, the process would be to have either the developer or ourselves engage services of a professional biologist to undergo the monitoring required, inventory and monitoring, to ensure that there's no species at risk, habitat, or individuals that are harmed potentially by the development. If there are any issues that come up that are a combination of compensation and mitigation would be undertaken as per the federal and provincial laws. So there's a whole due process, due diligence that's undertaken with these decisions, and development would not happen until that work was undertaken.
Thank you. Councillor Allen. And then the gentleman in the back.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. I was just going to say that we probably have the most environmentally sensitive staff in the history of the city. And, we've been looking at natural wetlands and creating, zoning to protect the environment. And I think if there was a chance that there was a problem or there was a risk to endangered species, our staff would certainly be the first ones to speak up and let us know about it. Or, as Graham just indicated, mediate the situation. My understanding, too, from our previous meetings is that a lot of those trees that are in that Vienna woods are now endangered trees at risk of coming down. So I trust our staff to follow their conscience when it comes to environmentally sensitive areas, and I appreciate the research that they've done on this.
Gentleman in the back.
I'm curious what species of owl it is that's nesting there that's endangered.
Screech owl.
No, we got a ton of them at our place if you want one.
Hopefully they don't start swooping down like they do on the coast now.
They took my cat. What? Screech owls too small. They picked it up. We had to get people to the vet. It's okay.
If you look it up.
Is it, I'm just curious, because somebody could say, it's an endangered species, but I mean, I don't know what species you're talking about. I mean, there's lots of owls at our end of town, and it's my cat that's endangered. Really. So I'm just curious what endangered species there might be there, and what happens if these pine trees that are in Vienna Wood? Yeah. What happens if the beetle gets in there? What's the city going to do then?
Am I allowed to answer through you, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, first off,
Well, to a degree, because you're not an expert on answering that question.
You're right, but bear with me, okay? First off, Mr. Drexler's comment is not quite correct. That was a nest of great horned owls, and there were two, and there were young that were born in that nest. And they were just across the border inside of the airport fence as opposed to in the Vienna Woods. At the same time, the 3 acres that the city decimated, or indirectly they were decimated, there were other owls nesting in those 3 acres, and the one other owl that I know is in the pines as well is called boreal owl. aside from that, there's a multitude there's probably 3 to 5 species of woodpeckers that live in the trees, flickers, lots of small birds. We have 3 lists from 3 individual parties that list all the different species that have been seen in the pines over the years. So, and if I may, as far as the cleanup of the forest, I largely rely on Fred Marshall. I find him to be of the highest integrity, and he's a forester, I think you're all aware of. He has a lot of confidence in Councillor Ross, and I've sent you a prepared report that he did for the school board 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But he really says the cost involved to clean up the canopy of the forest and to transplant the trees is not a large project. He's already contacted the forestry on Mr. Ishii and is working with him to try to find a time, set up a time where this spring they can clean up the canopy and any of the dead wood that's in there. And as far as any bug-infested trees, we have a next-door neighbor by the name of Ron Ritko. He has a similar situation with pines on his property, and he maintains his little forest. And if the odd tree that happens to be infected is removed, the rest of the trees stand strong. And the other thing that did happen is when the city had when the 3 acres were cut down, is it opened up the canopy, and we had multiple windstorms before that, and the tree stood strong. But when that 3 acres was taken down, there was a huge hole created. And what happened is then the air current effects did damage some of the trees and caused some of the pines, ponderosa pine, to lean. Surprisingly enough, the arborist for the city said they would never come back. A lot of those trees have recovered and are standing about straight again. Some of them come back partially and so on. But yes, it is important. I mean, I don't think we should wait until something is on an endangered species.
Exactly.
Those creatures have a chance, they need a chance to live, and we're responsible for them. And I really am immensely concerned that we're going to lose them. And it's not just for myself. Yes, we live in the area, all that. 14 years ago, we had a petition, we went through the whole gamut. But ultimately, it's there for the future, and you'll be proud of what you've created if you do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Any other questions from the audience? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? Anyone opposed?